Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my full Peacemaker Season 2, Episode 2 video. There's a whole bunch of Easter eggs and references, so we'll break it all down. Really feels like the theme of most episodes are how can Peacemaker make things worse for himself, like what bad decisions can he make now? The episode title was A Man is Only as Good as His Bird, a reference to the phrase, a man is only as good as his word, and to Eagly, mostly to Eagly because of his big hero montage and taking out all of Langston Fury, Tim Moto's team at the end of the episode. Peacemaker's symbol is also the dove of peace, so just a lot of bird-themed things going on during the episode in the series in general. They start the episode 8 months ago in a flashback prior to the events of the Superman movie, or maybe they're trying to say that it's happening immediately after the events of Superman. People actually asked James Gunn specifically about the timeline, like, when does Superman take place? When does this series take place in reference to the end of the Superman movie? And he was kind of vague about, like, I don't exactly remember how much. I think the idea is that he took the Argus job when Amanda Waller was kicked out prior to the end of the Superman movie. Like, when you see him meeting with the government, that's because Amanda Waller is not there. Like, he's taken Amanda Waller's job, and that's why he's on that council. But we get Economos introducing Rick Flag Sr. to the people at Argus and giving him the grand tour. He's just taken over for Amanda Waller, who was ousted by Congress because of what happened at the end of Peacemaker Season 1 with her daughter outing everything that she was doing with the Suicide Squad, which they call Task Force X, which is the comic book name of the team originally. There are a couple references to that later in the episode too, with Task Force X disbanding, basically the aftermath of the Suicide Squad movie. That movie is meant to be canon to the DCEU. We actually see him taking the job on television, being sworn in by the president's office. There's a weather alert on the news about a bunch of storms coming. That could be any number of weather-controlling superheroes or villains in the DC universe, like Weather Wizard, like Flash villains. They also have the Argus acronym in the lobby. If you didn't know what it meant, it's Advanced Research Group of the United States. Advanced research into metahumans mostly, but all supernatural-related things, like including ghosts. Remember, they have the ectoplasmic detecting satellite that can pick up ghosts. They would also get involved with anything related to time travel or multidimensional things, which is where we get to the plot of Peacemaker Season 2 and them monitoring his alternate pocket dimension. When Economos says they're old pals, he's referring to the events of Creature Commandos, which took place earlier this year. Those episodes is meant to also take place in the timeline before the events of the Superman movie. If you did not watch that series, I did episode videos for all of them, so I'll link them in the description below. All that stuff is meant to be canon to the live-action DCU, the Superman movie, everything. It's all connected. That was actually a series where we saw our future version of the Justice League in our new DCU Batman for the first time. There's a lot of firsts that happened during that series. Rick Flag Sr.'s first act is to get a full report on his son's death, Rick Flag Jr., who was killed by Peacemaker on Amanda Waller's orders, which Economos hems and haws about, like, oh, it was kind of difficult, got kind of tricky there for a second. Anything we did was on Amanda Waller's orders. He explains that when it went down during the events of the Suicide Squad movie, he tried to get information on it, but Amanda Waller blocked his access to the files. But now that he's taken Amanda Waller's job, there is no security clearance higher than his. He can get access to anything that he wants. And it sets up his whole revenge arc against Peacemaker this season. He actually said during the events of Episode 1 that's the whole reason why he took the job in the first place, so that he could get his revenge on Peacemaker. We get another cameo from Rick Flag Jr., not the only one. There's a picture of the two of them together. They use footage that they clipped from the movie as well, too, to show him reading those events as they happen in the file. In real life, the actors are only about 19 years apart. In the DCU, the logic is that he and his wife had him when they were still teenagers. He enlisted in the army to earn a living to support them, eventually becoming a general.
The Peacemaker is in our agency's grace because of his work in Project Butterfly.
You can kind of tell that Sasha Bordeaux isn't totally on board with this whole Peacemaker plan. Like, we have all these resources for a reason. There are a lot of other much, much bigger problems. Like all the big supervillains that are breaking out of Arkham Asylum and out of Belle Reve Prison, which they mentioned in Episode 1. Probably going to come back to bite him in the ass later this series. She mentions Peacemaker getting a pass from Amanda Waller because of his work on Project Butterfly during the events of Season 1, which he does not care about. It's all about revenge, leading him to the multi-dimensional portals at his house. Like, that's what they use to actually go after him. They start detecting those. There are not any changes to the intro dance this time. It's just like Season 1. They did the exact same intro each episode. Then they pick up immediately after he kills the other version of himself last week and tries to hide the body unsuccessfully because he's an idiot and because Peacemaker himself is such a huge dude. It'd be impossible almost to hide him anywhere, where he gets the idea to call Vigilante to cut the body up and throw it in the incinerator like the other alien from that other dimension that keeps showing up randomly. Like he goes full American Psycho Patrick Bateman here, just chopping the body up to get rid of it.
You like Huey Lewis in the news?
They're okay.
You notice he also has a Lord Tech phone, just like everybody else, because Maxwell Lord is kind of like the Steve Jobs, the Apple situation inside the DCU. Adebayo goes back to her place to see her estranged wife and check in on their stuff and their dogs that they own together, who we find out works at Jitter's Coffee. They had one during the Superman movie, and just in general, their big DC chain. They were a major location during every single season of the Flash TV show. Their dog people, Superman and Supergirl, would approve. Krypto would be very happy about this. That's also probably just because James Gunn, in real life, is a huge dog person, so no surprise he'd write some of his characters being huge dog people too. There's also another joke about this later in the episode when Harcourt talks about hating dogs. I'll explain that in a second too, because that's more of a reference to James Gunn's real-life dog, who did inspire the Krypto character to begin with. They explained the major reason for their separation was they were supposed to return to Gotham City after the events of Season 1 where they'd live, but they stayed here. She continued to try and work and develop her own business, her spy business. That's what the cards were for in Episode 1 that she showed Peacemaker. Her wife makes a reference to alternate dimensions without realizing it. Leeching off someone else's reality is a reference to her mother, Amanda Waller, in this context, the spy business, quote-unquote. But the way that James Gunn explained it is that Adebayo and Peacemaker are kind of like parallels of each other narratively, and he did the same thing during Season 1, like they were meant to be on parallel arcs. And at least right now, Peacemaker's story is literally an alternate dimension, so at some point later this season, all the different storylines will converge. But until then, many references to metaphorical and literal alternate dimensions. Harcourt then has a bit of a run-in at the pharmacy trying to get a fix for her wounds. The woman thinks that the bruises and cuts are from an abusive boyfriend or husband who she loses it on. You feel kind of bad for that other woman who was just trying to help her. She makes a Muppets reference to Beaker, so the Muppets are canon to the DCU, who the other woman has to explain to the dude, because I think the idea is that the Muppets are also kind of a defunct brand in that universe as well. It's kind of the same case in real life, too. Like, there isn't a lot of Muppet-related stuff happening right now, Muppet movies or Muppet TV shows. They've tried a couple of times, but all the Muppet shows recently have been canceled. Then I was surprised to see that Economos is eating McDonald's, just surprised that they exist in the DCU, and they didn't just use Big Belly Burger again. But this is where we meet Tim Meadows' Langston Fleury character and see some of his eccentricities and just how inappropriate he is. That's kind of the whole comedy of the character and how inappropriate he gets with everybody throughout the episode.
Did I just accidentally sexualize someone that you respect as a friend, Economos? It's just because I was thinking about tapping that ass, you know?
James Gunn explained that he's on a similar arc that Peacemaker was on in Season 1, where Peacemaker started Season 1 being a super big dick to everybody, but then eventually softened up and became a much better person by the end of the season. So the same thing is going to happen with Tim Meadows' character. He starts out as a huge dick to everybody, and then just slowly becomes a better person by the end of the season. So that's why they lay into his inappropriate jokes so heavily in this episode. Makes fun of Economos, calling him Ginger Cool, which is another callback to Peacemaker's dye beard jokes in Season 1, making fun of his hair, basically. Eats some of his McDonald's without asking permission, also a real dick move. Then we see the aftermath of Peacemaker's bender. He still has the KY jelly lying around his living room. We get that slow reveal of all the partiers from Episode 1, from that epic bender, who are still hella naked. Fleury thinks Adebayo is hot, not realizing she's a lesbian, making all kinds of weird sexual innuendos and inappropriate sexual jokes, and also giving Economos a really creepy back rub, very inappropriate. Like, literally everything he's saying and doing is supposed to be as inappropriate as possible during this whole part of the episode. Peacemaker tries to spare Adebayo, not letting her in the house. There's a funny moment of Eagly trying to bite her and then going off to catch his food. He claims that he likes her, but I think that's just a callback to Adebayo meeting Eagly in Season 1, where he also tried to bite her inside Peacemaker's car. They set the whole bit with Fleury claiming he has bird blindness, his sole weakness, which they pay off a couple times at the end of the episode. The way he says it later in the episode also makes it sound like he was not lying here, like he actually does have bird blindness. Economos lies for Peacemaker again to protect him, not telling Flurry about his quantum unfolding chamber, the whole reason why Argus is here monitoring him. Also, we find out Sasha Bordeaux sent Flurry in on Rick Flag Sr.'s orders because he didn't trust Economos because he knew about his relationship with Peacemaker. There are a couple big questions they raise here too. So Peacemaker says that he grew up with the quantum unfolding chamber, this pocket dimension, meaning that his father has had it for a very long time. So just wonder, how did he create it? What were the circumstances there? Why didn't he use it more often? Maybe his father is just this really, really smart redneck. I actually come from the Midwest. There were a lot of very, very smart, very highly educated rednecks. He makes a reference to Martians, which feels like another Martian Manhunter reference. There were Chacos everywhere in the Superman movie. Lex Luthor also mentioned tall, dark, and Martian. Then he gets super meta when he suggests they all do a big dance routine together, which is literally what they do in all the intros. But Peacemaker doesn't break the fourth wall here. He doesn't know that he's a fictional character inside a TV show. She reveals that he's being monitored by Argus and Rick Flag Sr., and he knows that he killed his son, sparing Economos because he doesn't mention his name out loud, like, oh, I know who you're talking about, who let you know about this, because Flurry would have heard and informed Rick Flag Sr., so Economos would have been in really big trouble. She also lets him know that they can detect every time he uses the portal, which later in the episode he says, screw it, who cares, because we need to get rid of this body. Speaking of which, Vigilante then shows up with his gear for cleaning up bodies, looking as happy as you could possibly be, like he's having so much fun because he gets to hang out with his friend. There's a lot to unpack with Vigilante's character, especially during that crazy montage later when they're cleaning up the actual body. But he's the guy the Peacemaker called asking for his bone saw, like, you still got that bone saw? Flurry makes the Pokemon reference, setting up a larger bit where they argue about the logic and the grammar of actual Pokemon, and setting up the post-credit scene with the girlfriends that he had back in the day instead of playing Pokemon. There are a couple jokes about all the naked people still in the house. Then we meet the Zora character. She actually feels like a backdoor reference to Zora V. Lar, who was a Kandorian criminal, like a Supergirl villain called Black Flame. Just because we have the Supergirl movie coming out next year, but this character isn't literally a Kryptonian villain.
Why did you move the door?
I think this is James Gunn just trying to use Easter egg names. Like later in the episode, we see Peacemaker's phone from the other universe with many, many names on it. Anytime you see names pop up, usually he tries to work in Easter eggs in some way. Sometimes they have larger meaning, and sometimes they're just meant to be super deep cuts. But because we do have that Supergirl movie coming out next summer, do not be surprised if we start seeing Supergirl references and Easter eggs popping up all over the place. Vigilante gets pissed off because he wasn't invited to the Bender, and I think the way that they explain his character, James Gunn has talked about this in the past, is that he doesn't understand facial features, like he's really bad in social situations. Without coming right out and saying it, I think the idea is that Vigilante is meant to be coded autistic. And that's why he acts so weird all the time in crazy situations, like especially when they're cleaning up the body. Sasha Bordeaux then orders Flurry to try and find out and shut down all the dimensional portals without telling Economos about it while they're at their party later in the episode. And they keep passing symbols inside the pocket dimension on the different doorways when they're going to the body. These are probably meant to be references to the universes that each of these portals lead to. There are 99 separate doors to 99 different dimensions. Maybe we'll get a montage where we see a bunch more of them, but I don't know if they're going to do every single one of the 99. If you think you're able to decode some of these symbols, let me know in the comments below. Vigilante also foreshadows the future of the series, saying that the other brother and father would try to kill him if they learned what he did killing this Peacemaker, which eventually seems like they're going to try and do in the trailers, because later in the episode it seems like the other father and brother are starting to get suspicious of what's going on with Peacemaker. Then they play another Foxy Shazam song over the montage disposing of the body. Remember, Foxy Shazam has cameos during the Superman movie. They use them for the intro song. We're probably going to see them later in the series too, because we've seen them in some of the behind-the-scenes trailers. James Gunn, noted huge fan of Foxy Shazam. And it is wild how happy Vigilante is, just having a great time with his best friend, cleaning up a body. Peacemaker doing everything he can not to throw up in disgust. They throw the body into that incinerator that the other mystery alien from the other dimension keeps showing up to dispose of his own animals in, who they then use for another bit because Peacemaker says that he never says hi back to him, like he's been seeing him many times every single day. Not totally clear which universe this other alien comes from. We see a little bit inside his dimension. It just looks like a regular room. Maybe Peacemaker will actually see inside there at some point, or Flurry's team will travel inside there at some point. What is he doing in the pocket dimension? Why does he keep trying to dispose of those rat-like animals every single day? A lot of questions that hopefully they'll answer later this season. I'm sure they will have hilarious payoffs. While he's disposing of the other Peacemaker's body, he grabs his phone, setting up the later part of the episode where he texts the other version of Harcourt. The whole reason why he's able to unlock the phone in the first place is because they have the same biology, and remember, phones, face detection, but the difference with this phone is that it's all Apple apps, so I think the idea is that Maxwell Lord isn't a big deal in the other universe. Steve Jobs and Apple are like they are in real life. He starts to see all of the pictures with the other version of Harcourt, his former girlfriend from that universe. He has an award that he won in one of the pictures. There are a couple of videos of them just having a happy life together. And it seems like on the surface, the other Peacemaker's life was perfect. All helping to inform his reasons for trying to assume his life at the end of the episode. There's a funny montage of them introducing Flurry's Argus team, just all doing really crazy things, I think, to set up some of the jokes later when they're stuck inside the van arguing about the logic of housewarming gifts, and all of his inappropriate names that he tries to give them.
Pony boy, don't let him out of your sight. Titties?
There are a couple of funny moments as the 11th Street kids all reunite, like Economos reunites with Harcourt. They go to party on her roof. She makes a psycho Norman Bates reference to Vigilante and his mother. We'll actually meet her later this season. She's alive and well. Like they have like a fairly normal house life, but we'll see some of that later. She makes a joke about Eagly trying to kill her all the time, I think to set up the bit where Eagly just rips apart Flurry's team. When Economos says that he likes dogs, but Harcourt absolutely hates them and the dogs that are in her building, this is probably James Gunn making a reference to his real-life dog, because Harcourt is played by Jennifer Holland, his real-life wife. They've actually had multiple dogs together because she's been with him for a long time. She was with him back when his older dog, Von Spears, was still alive, and when he got his new rescue dog, who was the inspiration for Krypto in the Superman movie. Part of the idea with that dog is that it was so misbehaved, that's why he wrote Krypto in the Superman movie, being this misbehaved dog, but with superpowers. Like, what if this misbehaved dog in real life had superpowers? We'd really be screwed. So her being pissed off about the dogs in her building being super misbehaved is probably a reference to their real-life dog being super misbehaved. There's a couple of jokes about Economos breaking beers because he is such a klutz. And then the 11th Street kids have their big reunion with them all being together for the first time, it seems like since the end of season 1. Then Flurry and his team try to infiltrate Peacemaker's pocket dimension. He makes a couple of pop culture references. Encino Man for that movie. Great movie if you haven't seen it, but fun fact, Brendan Fraser, who's having a bit of a renaissance the last several years, Encino Man himself, was actually going to be Superman during the J.J. Abrams Superman Flyby movie in 2002. That's right, this picture of him in the Superman costume is real. We totally missed out on an amazing version of Superman in the early 2000s. The other cool connection to this 2002 Superman Flyby movie is that a much younger Henry Cavill auditioned for Superman, but did not get the role at the time. We all knew what happened with that, like he came back several years later and was picked by Zack Snyder in Man of Steel to be his DCEU Superman. Then he makes a barely legal joke to that movie, to a Cupid doll, which were like the real big thing before Beanie Babies going back in America for a very, very long time. Like Cupid dolls were very, very popular for a very long time. And they eventually find Peacemaker's pocket dimension until Eagly attacks them like a really, really badass attack dog. It just absolutely shreds them. Doesn't kill them, but absolutely wipes the floor with them. There are a couple funny callbacks during this to his bird blindness and the inappropriate code names, which he says multiple times. Love the consistency, comedy comes in threes. They even give Eagly his own slow motion hero walk montage shot, like his own badass slow motion montage. Part of the reason for making him seem like he's so invincible here is to set up Michael Rooker's Red Saint Wild character, who we'll probably meet in episode 3, because he's meant to be Eagly's arch nemesis this season. So I think the idea is that Langston Flurry goes to him because they need help dealing with Eagly. During their party, there's a moment where Adebayo also seems like she foreshadows the end of season 2, where she tells Economos to quit Argus if he hates the job so much. Maybe he will wind up doing that at the end of the season, and he'll join her at the agency she's trying to create herself. Like maybe the 11th Street Kids gang will form their own agency, because Harcourt is also having that problem too, where nobody wants to hire her, except for Adebayo would probably love to work with her too. So maybe the 11th Street Kids will just form their own separate agency at the end of the season. There's a quick reference to the Evergreen town where her apartment is. That's actually a big Easter egg for Hal Jordan in the Green Lantern comics. It was one of his former homes. Kyle Chandler is going to be playing Hal Jordan in the DCU. We'll actually meet him on the Green Lantern HBO series. I don't expect him to cameo during Peacemaker.
Clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose.
He and Harcourt referenced the events of Season 1 where he followed her to the bar and she got into a similar fight. He correctly clocks that she's been trying to get into fights and they're both just kind of going through it, and maybe they can help each other out, but she wants none of it, like she just pushes him away. He makes a Task Force X reference to them disbanding. That's also a reference to the events of the Suicide Squad movie in the aftermath where Waller broke the team up and then she herself got hauled in by Congress. After she pushes him away, he starts to spiral, setting up the twist at the end of the episode where he tries to assume the identity of the other Peacemaker. There are a couple of jokes here too when he stumbles home, like he thinks all the damage is from Eagly. Apparently Eagly just wrecks their house on the regular. He has got quite the collection of paraphernalia on his nightstand, accidentally grabs the other Peacemaker's phone, and then notice all the names on his phone. Typically, when they have giant lists of names like this, and they're not like huge Easter eggs or setting up any big twists, they use a lot of production crew members' names, like people from real life that actually work on the show. No surprise the phone does not work across dimensions, like it's just a regular phone, so he has to be inside the other dimension, like through the portal in the other dimension for it to work. Notice when he enters the other dimension, the other father and brother are trying to find his other self, who apparently disappears a lot, has problems with pills, and is seeing somebody named Karen. Maybe we'll get some more details about that in the next couple of episodes. They've also spotted mystery blood in the library, so they're already investigating what really happened and getting suspicious, which will probably bite him in the ass in a future episode, like Vigilante foreshadowed, if they find out that you killed the other Peacemaker, they'll try to kill you, which they probably will. So part of the logic here is that Peacemaker is still super drunk. He gets the text from Harcourt, which kind of seals the deal, like the broken heart, like, the only thing that he wants, human connection. He wants Harcourt so badly, he wants to be with somebody else, and she reaches out to him in the other dimension. So he's like, boom, I'll solve all these problems and the disappearance of the other Peacemaker by just pretending to be that Peacemaker. This is exactly why you don't make big decisions like this while you're super drunk. Then during the post-credit scene, they just continued the Pokemon bit from earlier with Langston, Fleury, and Economos, pushing him a bit about the girlfriends that he claims he had when he was a kid, trying to catch him in the lie, like, how many girlfriends? Where were they from? Where did you live? What were their names? But I love the way that this bit ended, where he eventually convinces Economos, like, oh, okay, were they hot? Oh, cool, awesome. Like he just gives in and believes him at a certain point. There are a bunch of Easter eggs and references during the episode, so if you spotted any that I didn't talk about during the video, just write them in the comments below. What'll probably happen is I'll do an episode 3 trailer video, and my full episode 3 video will post next week after they release it, just like normal. If you've not been watching Alien Earth episodes, I'm also doing weekly videos for that. It is a banger series. Be sure to check that out. I'll post links at the end of this. Everybody click here for my Peacemaker Episode 3 video. I'll update the link as soon as I post that, and click here for all my Alien Earth episodes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.